More recently, been working alongside a couple of incubators, accelerators, and some startup/scale-up clients to kind of embed in their teams as opposed to the outsourced hire, if you like. Really excited to get going. So yeah, thanks for having me here.
Well, thank you very much for that to all three of you. Now, perhaps the others that are tuning in via the live streams can start getting ready to join us here. Please, there's no point in sending me messages because I need to focus on the conversation we're having here. So if you want to join us, just go to our website, startup-to-scaleup.club, find today's session, which is Startup Growth Q&A 135, click join. You need to register, but it's a few seconds, and then you'll get an email, a link to your email on joining us. For those of you that are here, just type your question in the chat, and I'll happily give you the mic to ask the team. Perhaps we can have some do's and don'ts. I think it's really important because unfortunately, founders, we tend to make the same mistakes over and over again. So I'm sure you've seen some similar traits in terms of good things and bad things to do when it comes to growing your startup. So perhaps, again, this time we can start with Gail and then Alec and then Kieran, please. What are your biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage growth?
I think on the do's, the key thing is about making sure you've really done your customer research. It's all about getting product market fit. And I think it can be quite easy to convince yourself that you have that based on a few customer interviews or your own gut feeling, or maybe some strong conversations, strong positive conversations you've had. But it's really important to make sure that you really are doing your research properly and asking as many people as possible, and doing that face to face, actually speaking to people in real life, not just doing online surveys, because you get so much more information when you see somebody face to face. So I would really focus on that and ask yourself whether you really have done this bit properly before going ahead and building things when you're not really sure. And on the don'ts, it's sort of a do and don't really. And this one is easier said than done, but it's around pay and paying yourself properly. If you're at a stage where you've raised some money, be realistic about how much you need to earn to not have to be constantly worrying about your own income as well as worrying about everything else to do with your business. So obviously you're never going to be paying yourself what you would earn working for another company, but make sure you're paying yourself enough. And if you haven't raised investment, I would encourage you to keep the side hustle going for as long as you possibly can, just to give you a little bit of financial security whilst you're doing it.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, Alec.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things. One is, I suppose, more of a mantra or just a way of thinking, and it's something I learned quite a few years ago, which is a phrase which is, it might not be perfect, but if it's progress, do it. And what I like about that is that by making a decision and doing something, whatever that is, whether that's in sales and marketing and growth, or whether that's in testing a new product, or deciding to work with someone, as long as you've got some goals in mind and a little bit of strategy and a reason that you're doing things, then it might not be perfect, but staying or not releasing something into the world, whatever that may be, based on the fact that it doesn't feel like it's quite perfect yet, or you haven't quite mapped out what the next sort of 3, 6, and 12 months are going to look like based on it, you'll probably end up with a lot of inertia. So you've just got to be quite agile, test, learn, and therefore just try things out and crack on. And then from a less mantra and more tactical point of view, I would just say that when you are testing and learning and growing, what happens with founders is that you tend to be in almost a bit of an echo chamber. So you're doing everything yourself, and then you start to delegate things to other people as you bring on board either contractors or assistants or new hires. And it's really important to try to build a very simple process that is documented, even just, you know, one side of A4 before you start trying to delegate things to other people. And I'll sort of put that in the vein of perhaps trying to bring on some sales support, since we're on obviously the growth Q&A. What I see time and again is that a founder's built their business on passion, determination, and probably their own network from being in an industry for many, many years. But what they don't have is a process for finding new customers, qualifying new customers, and bringing them on board. And so when they then try to outsource that, whether that's to a sales agency or a consultant, or bringing a new business person on board, perhaps a junior new business coordinator, then actually they spend a lot of time micromanaging that person, because they've not really documented and thought about what they're doing before they've then brought that person on. So to sort of paraphrase that and just bring it back to something a bit more bite-sized, I would say it might not be perfect, but if it's progress, do it. But whatever you're doing, make sure you've got a reason for thinking about it, and then you've documented it in some way so that you can try to onboard or delegate or bring your vision and thinking to life with someone who's not in your own head.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Alec. Kieran?
Sure. So there's probably two main do's for me, so most of my experience for context comes from software, and it kind of plays into that a little bit. But first one for me is be really, really clear about what your value proposition is. There's an acronym that's often used in software called FAB, features and benefits, and I think a lot of founders get this wrong at the early stage. A lot of founders get kind of bogged down in flogging what the features are and what the impressive thing that their product can do, but realistically what customers care about is the benefits it can produce to their workflow and the outcomes it's going to give them. So being really clear on that value proposition at the earliest stage is super important to get those early customers and go from startup to scale up, to be cheesy. I suppose the other do for me then is be really clear on which channels you're going to target and why you're going to target those channels. Lots of startups at the early stage feel as though they have to kind of try everything, boil the ocean is the way I like to look at it. You know, whether that's blogs, LinkedIn posting, cold outreach, webinars, you name it. Lots of startups try to tackle everything at once, and all that does really is dilute the efforts in the channels that really matter. So figure out where your ideal customers spend their most time and focus your efforts on that channel specifically. And then two probably main don'ts for me is don't build too soon, whether that's the business, the product, the service, whatever it is. And what I mean by that is validate that you're onto something before you begin the motion of building. And that, as I said, could be the product, it could be the wider service, whatever that is. But validate that you're onto something with a trusted group of customers or early adopters, and scale out from there. And then I suppose the final one for me, and it ties back into the channel perspective, if you like, is don't have that scattergun approach. Don't try to do everything at once. Don't try every single channel in the hope that something sticks. Be targeted in why you're focusing on certain channels as opposed to others. And the faster you can do that, and the more kind of effective you can do that, and do the customer interviews, figure out where you are with product market fit and all that good startup stuff, the faster you'll be on to scaling that venture out as opposed to figuring out what works in the short term.
That's some amazing advice. Thank you very much to all three of you. And I think what we'll do now, because we've got some questions that were sent in, but also one from Pauline, which is one of the co-founders of our Startup of the Month. Pauline, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Anton.
You
Good
can.
afternoon.
Brilliant. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself for the panel, but also for the others listening, and then fire away with your question.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pauline Brandt, and I'm co-founder with my friend from university, Becca Leasley, who's also on this call. And we've combined our skills and experience to create an app called Reggae Calm, which you might have seen at the top of this session. It's answering the need for stress relief, and it's going to have various products on it, including relaxation meditations, productivity, soundscape, sleep solutions, pain relief. The question centers around our minimal value product, which is a 10-minute body scan relaxation. So we want to move into testing, and the question is around the timeline. When do you take that MVP to market, ideally, and what are the touch points that we need to address before going anywhere near the market? Thank you, Panda.
That is brilliant, Pauline. Thank you very much for that. And Pauline, just before we try and give our answers, with that 10 minutes that you're talking about here, are you already speaking to people about it, whether it's potential users or maybe professionals? Are you kind of having conversations and doing any research at all?
We've started in a small way, talking to professionals like in the health service, and also to individuals. So we want to move from that to actually testing it and getting them to try it and give us some precise feedback. So maybe part of that is thinking about what questions precisely we want to ask of those testers.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Pauline. Pauline, I'll give you my quick 2 pence and then I'll pass you on to my experts. Number one, I'm glad you said you're talking to the professionals. What I would do is I would make a list of, I don't know, 100 people, let's say, that you can reach out to, both professionals in the health service, but also I would strongly suggest that you have a look and see, I don't know, let's say, what are the top 10 apps that you really admire in your field? Then go on LinkedIn and see if you can find people that work there for a certain time, not a week or two, but considerable time at the beginning, and they no longer work there, and reach out to them and say, look, this is what I'm working on. I'd love to pick your brains. I understand you've had experience in this app or that app. But since you're no longer there, I'd love to pick your brains over a chat, please, and get their understanding. And third demographic, it's people that you can actually eventually build partnerships with, i.e., they may have certain other products that are adjacent to what you're doing, but they don't have the specific one, and you can use them to go to market. I would look into these three, and to give you the shortest possible answer in terms of when's the right time to go to market, that is yesterday, Pauline. But let's see what the panel's got to say. So we'll start with, this time, let's start with Kieran, then Alec, then our lady of the house, Gail.
Awesome, thanks, Anton. So I hate giving this answer, but it is, it's true in what I'm about to say, in that it varies and depends, which is obviously not helpful. Couple of things to consider. I think what Anton mentioned there is paramount. Is yesterday is the best time to take your product to market. The faster you can get feedback and the faster you can kind of get those perspectives from users and customers, the better. And a lot of startups fall into the trap of trying to perfect something before it's ready. My attitude is done is better than perfect. And I think Alec alluded to that in his first answer with the initial question. So I think as soon as you possibly can is my perspective on it, Pauline. I think it also depends on whether you're going down the B2B or B2C approach. Having a B2C approach means that you probably need to build up some kind of community beforehand to build up that trusted group and get their perspectives. Whereas if it's B2B, perhaps you can rely on a trusted group of maybe 2 or 3 main customers, main champions, and they can roll that out a lot faster for you as a result of partnering with them. So I know that sounds like a little bit of a wishy-washy answer, Pauline, but it does depend a lot, and I think the faster the better is broadly my opinion on this. And the sooner you can get feedback, that's gold dust for any founder. especially at the early stages when you're still in the exploratory phase of trying to validate the idea and the concept. So just get it out there as soon as you possibly can with whoever you've got in that trusted group at the moment, whether that is an organizational level or individuals, because you're only going to benefit from the feedback in the medium to long term.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Alec, what are your thoughts on this? When would you go to market with this product?
Yeah, thanks, Anton. All of my experience is in B2B marketing and B2B sales, but I think the fundamentals possibly remain the same. I wouldn't wed myself to that opinion. I'm happy to be challenged on that by those who are building B2C products. I would echo what I said earlier and that Kieran just alluded to, that it might not be perfect, but if it's progress, do it. So just get out as quickly as possible and start getting feedback. In the B2B world, as Kieran alluded to as well, you don't need quite so many customers to be able to try something out, because you might have one particular client that you're working with who has 25 users, for example. Another might have 50 users. So you can start getting a lot of feedback to help you align your product with what the market actually needs, simply by picking up 1, 2, or 3 early stage customers. You may find that with the very first ones, if you're literally launching your minimum viable product, you're probably going to have to give it to them for free to test it out, because paying for a product that could fall over or have technical hitches is unlikely, but people will give you a little bit more leeway if they know that you're trying to bring a product to market. I would say something that I've done in the past, or at least worked with clients on in the past, is to create, for want of a better word, a customer advisory board. And essentially, instead of just having yourself or maybe some investors or board members who are inputting, you actually pick 2 or 3 of your ideal clients and you reach out to them directly and you ask them to be involved in building out the product. So you define what their minimum is that they would require in this space, and then you make sure that the product is ready just to suit their minimum requirements, and then launch it with them whilst getting feedback from them and any of the users. And for example, if you've got a few different types of clients within your ideal customer profile, then maybe you try and pick one from each. So maybe it's a slightly different size of business, or maybe it's a slightly different slant on the same industry. And that way you're getting a little bit of feedback from all of them. It would be, when you're doing that, you probably need to be a little bit careful about immediately reacting to their feedback, because it is a small user base. So you don't want to build a product that literally suits one company. You need one that suits the industry in general. So that would be from the B2B perspective. I think the answer is get it out there as soon as possible as a minimum viable product, as soon as it's working, and then get feedback as quickly as possible. One of the challenges you may find is in trying to convert those customers that you've given it free of charge into paying customers, conceptually. But if the product's really good and it solves a problem for them, which I think again is something that Kieran alluded to earlier in terms of product market fit, then the option of having the product switched off because they won't pay for it may be more painful than paying a small amount each month for your product. So apologies that was all B2B, but that is my area of expertise, and hopefully, at least from a methodology point of view of how I'm thinking about it, perhaps you can convert that into how you might think about launching your product, Pauline.
Thank you very much, Alec. Last but not least, Girl, please.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Paula and Pauline and Becca. As someone who's launched a B2C or D2C app myself, I know how exciting it is to have something tangible ready to go and start sharing with people. So well done for getting your MVP ready. I echo what everybody else has said, is that there is no time like the present. You need to be getting out there and getting feedback as quickly as possible. what I would say is I agree with all the ideas that have come from the rest of the panel, particularly about the sort of the bigger conversations you can be having about partnerships and with professionals. But I imagine what they're going to want to know is what's the consumer feedback on this. So as a marketeer, in my background, I would really focus on who your core target audience is. I'm sure you've really thought about this already, but who do you want to be using this app, and how can you find them and get them trying it? So maybe you already have a waiting list that you've developed. Maybe you're already going out into the community and making people aware of this. You need to build a list. You need to get those people trying it. I agree, it will have to be for free because it's a simple product at the moment. And ideally, when people are trying it, sit with them when they try it so you can see how they're interacting with your app. So what's the user interface like? Is it working? Are they finding it easy to navigate? Where are the frustrations with that? These are all things that you can then amend when you get to your next stage of development. And ultimately, what you want to know is this something that they would want to use on an ongoing basis? And is it an improvement on or a substitute for something they're already using? So when you can go to the professionals, you kind of need some sort of proof of concept that's going to make them stand up and think, oh yes, this is better than X, Y, or Z because of this. So what are those KPIs you want to try to prove out when you're doing this testing that's going to help you build this great business case to take to those partners? So yeah, I would really focus on it's really with MVP, it's still really about testing and checking you've got something that is genuinely going to work for people and make a difference.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Gail, and also thanks to the other two as well. Pauline, just a quick one before we let you go. Can you remind us again, what is your current work and Becca's work, please, your co-founders?
Well, we've got a varied background. Becca has been a journalist, as like myself, broadcast journalist I am, but Becca currently is a reggae DJ. Who'd have thought, a reggae DJ originally from Devon? But these things happen, don't they? In the London.
They do indeed.
So I'm largely have been in communications, broadcast,
Okay.
and creative.
The reason why I asked, Pauline, and sorry to interrupt, by the way, is that what I would do if I were you, so on top of those things that I said, you know, to kind of reach out to those three demographics, what you actually want to do beforehand, you've probably heard me say this before if you've joined any of our previous sessions, and I know you have, but I'm not sure if you remember me mentioning this. There's something I call 𝗦𝘁. So N stands for need. Basically, you've got to think, what is the need you're fulfilling or the problem you're solving, and be extremely specific and explicit about it. W stands for want. You've got to think, who is going to want this? And a good way to do this is to start thinking of what they call customer persona. Who is one person that you know that would be the perfect candidate for this? And then you think of the second person and so on. And then you try and find common traits. And you both do this exercise. I stands for innovation. What innovation are you bringing to the fore compared to what's out there in the market now? And D, and this is quite important, disruption. Who are you going to disrupt out there? Which kind of players in the market are you going to disrupt? Basically, who are you going to steal clients from? If you can't think of that, then you need to go back to the drawing board, because your product or service is just not where it needs to be. If you can't think of somebody you'll steal clients from. And I know steal sounds vulgar, but you know what I mean by that. And just as important as the need or the problem that you're solving, basically, S, which stands for scalability. First and foremost, is this scalable? It might be a nice thing, but are people going to pay enough for it? Or are enough people going to pay for it? How do you scale it? What do you have to scale it? And what do you need to get? Once you think of these, put them down on a piece of paper and try to do it on either what they call a model not try, actually do it on a model canvas as well as a product roadmap. And don't worry about it, they will change because everything always constantly changes on startup land, but still try and put them down on a piece of paper on those two models that I mentioned format. So a model canvas, you can search it online, you'll find it easy, and also a product roadmap. And then go to these people, and eventually, as the panelist alleged here, try and come up with a focus group, maybe via the people you've spoken to or others, and maybe even before you've built the app, just with the wireframes and the designs, try and get a focus group of a few people that are ideally your target market in a room, maybe even when you're not around, but somebody who's actually not attached to the startup, and try and get some feedback from them. That's what I would do. Hope you found it helpful.
Oh, extremely helpful, Anton, and also great panel. Thank you all very much.
You're very welcome, and best of luck. Thank you very much for joining us. Right, we've only got 22 minutes to go. This is Startup Growth Q&A. It's our 135th session. We've been doing these for almost 4 years now, where over 270 people have joined us, and none of that would have been possible without people like Gail, Alec, and Kieran. So please do show them your love. Feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn. Obviously, do remember they do this for free so that they don't have to keep doing loads of other work for free. So bear that in mind. And by the way, panel, if you'd like to drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat, please feel free to do that. Just a reminder, number one, for those of you that are tuning in via LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. So if you do want to ask us any questions and hopefully get some help in going from zero to hero and growing your business at the next stage, really, you'll need to be here interacting with us on Microsoft Teams. You can do that by going to our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Growth Q&A 135. Click join, quick registration. You get a link to your email, and Bob's your uncle. You can then click on that and join us. For those of you that are here on Microsoft Teams, all you have to do is type your question in the chat. I'll give you the mic, and then you can ask the panel. Now, if your questions, by the way, today on growth, remember there are no wrong questions. And there's no need to be shy because it's a learning curve for us all. And you can ask us today anything on growing your business, whether that's user, vendor, client, partner acquisition, perhaps sales, marketing, advertising, branding, go-to-market, growth hacks, and all that jazz. If, however, your questions are on other matters and not growth, please save them for the other events we run. So on Mondays, it's talent. Tuesdays, product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month it's legal, and third Friday of the month it's finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to those sessions via our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, you might want to join our WhatsApp group. At the top and bottom of the site, there's a WhatsApp icon. If you click on that, you'll be able to get alerts and join our community, but then also get alerts to all future rooms. Remember, the Startup of the Month campaign is now, or competition rather, is now open, which means if you do get to become the winner, you'll be featured in all our Q&A events throughout April and hopefully gain some decent exposure for your business. But also, you will get priority in asking questions to our numerous amazing panels that we do. And now, with that in mind, I think we've got, where are we? Yes, we've got a question that was sent in. I hope I'm not repeating this because for some reason it sounds familiar. Right, where is it? Okay, so I'll put it in the chat, Tim, if you'd like to kind of read it, but I'll read it out loud for the people that are tuning in via the live streams. This is a D2C, so direct-to-consumer food delivery service. They're based in Edinburgh, currently at seed stage. And their situation is that basically they feel customers often encounter issues with order accuracy. And the question she asks is, our D2C food delivery service is losing customers due to frequent issues with order accuracy and delayed resolutions. How can we overhaul our customer support process by introducing real-time order tracking updates, empowering support agents with enhanced order history tools, and implementing AI-driven solutions to predict and resolve recurring issues proactively? Additionally, how can we incentivize customers to report problems quickly, such as offering instant discounts or account credits to ensure complaints are addressed before dissatisfaction grows? My God, she's put 3 questions. Okay. Lastly, how can we measure and optimize first contact resolution rates to build a reputation for reliability and responsiveness in a competitive market? Jeez. Okay. Shall we start with Gail first, since you've done B2C and D2C, Gail, and then maybe we can go to Kieran rather, and last but not least, Alec. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, isn't there?
Big stuff.
And actually, I don't have a huge amount of experience in this specific area, but
Fair enough.
What I can see is that there are obviously some issues right at the heart of the customer service here about the order process, and it seems to me a classic case of really getting into some diagnosis here to understand what's not working, specifically what is not working very well, and working out what are the key things that at the heart of this need to be addressed. What exactly are the problems here, and what can you do about them? I would focus on that more than trying to pay customers off if they report a problem. What we want is to be in a situation where there isn't a problem. So I'm working in a business at the moment that's having some issues around the customer service side of things, and the key thing is been very quick to jump to resolution, which of course you do need to do because you don't want to lose your customers, but ultimately you've got to get under the skin of what is going wrong and how can you fix that first.
Thank you very much, Gail. Kieran?
Yeah, I would echo that point. I think the kind of diagnosis comes first and foremost. One of the most effective ways to do that I've found with some of my clients is workflow mapping, and it feels almost like a bit of a school-like exercise. And what I mean by workflow mapping is map out that every single system that you've got in-house, technology, tech stacks, order tracking, whatever you currently have in-house, map it all out with something like Miro or Miro. That's M-I-R-O. It's effectively a desktop version of a whiteboard. Once you understand kind of where the overlaps are, which technology is talking to who and all that kind of stuff, then you can begin to put steps in place to mitigate those things. But until you have that holistic top level view of every moving part in your business, it's hard to come to that diagnosis. There was a client I was working with a few months back. They were in the B2C space, and it was a very different problem. But one software they did implement, which might be useful, it might be worth taking a look at once you've done the workflow mapping, is a software called 𝗏𝗏𝗪. And effectively what they are is a white labeled chat bot, so that you can bake it into your tech stack, your service offering, your product, so that when it comes to customer problems, whether it's for the food delivery or similar, the user or the customer, will log into 𝗏𝗏𝗪 through your website and inquire about certain things. And often, as long as it's built in the right way, 𝗏𝗏𝗪 team can help you do that. You can effectively automate those follow-ups and sequencing and tracking and all that kind of good stuff. Now, it's worth noting, I have nothing to do with 𝗏𝗏𝗪, right? It's not an ad in any way. It's just a client of mine found it incredibly useful a few months back. So it might be worth taking a look at. But the crux of it, as Gail alluded to, is trying to identify what those problems are. And I think the first way to do that really is the workflow mapping. So map everything that talks to everything in your business and try and find the root cause before solutionizing too soon.
Thank you very much. And Kieran, just before we go to Alec, if you wouldn't mind, Kieran, on LinkedIn, we've got the live stream, and I have in the comments there, I've tagged all three of you. Would you mind typing or just tag in those? So Miro and the other, what was it, Talkative or whatever the company was, for people that may be watching the recording later, if you don't mind, please, especially the ones that send the question. And now to Alec, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get massively involved in service delivery. I mean, this is what I would sort of consider this to be. It's, you know, it's not trying to grow sales or bring new customers or you know, get your messaging sorted. This is, it feels like it's quite fundamental to actually the delivery of the service that this business offers. But I would probably just follow exactly what Gail and Kieran have said. It's like, understand where the problems are. It sounds like they've been listed, but it feels like a lot to unpack in one go. So maybe identify what the biggest problem is and then try and sort of pick them off and solve them one by one.
Indeed.
Yeah, so no more to add really. I would agree with Gail and Kieran's approaches.
I hear. Thank you very much, Alec. Righty. Oh, and by the way, it's much more commendable when we are not 100% sure of something to pass it on rather than for us to try and come up, you know, sort of second guess ideas and so on. So that's very good, Alec. Thank you for that. Rightio. We've got another question. This is okay. A clean tech for residential energy efficiency. Sorry. In Middlesbrough. They're preparing for Series A. The situation is basically low engagement after installation. So the question they've asked is, homeowners using our residential energy efficiency system engage minimally post-installation, missing out on long-term optimization benefits. How can we create a retention strategy that combines periodic energy performance reports, perhaps gamified energy saving challenges, and exclusive discounts on upgrades to maintain homeowner interest and ensure they remain active advocates of our brand? So I guess the real core of all these questions and comments and statements is, how can we get more people after they install the I'm assuming an app and a system to carry on using it? Let's start with Kieran, then Alec, then Gail, please.
Sure. So with retention is always a weird one, because I think founders often see the product they've built as fantastic, whether that's, you know, software product or otherwise, and you know, 3, 6, 9 months down the line, customers aren't staying and founders begin to panic. Often there's usually a simple fix, and in my experience, a lot of the successful teams that I've seen with retention and avoiding churn have been the ones that are able to build an engaged community around the product that they've made. So there's two sides to that really. The first one, which is pleasing to see that you've already mentioned, is the gamification angle. I think businesses like Duolingo being the most obvious, perhaps. They've proved that gamification can incentivize you to do some, if I'm to be totally candid, boring stuff. It's not necessarily fun to do 5 minutes of Duolingo. I mean, some people might disagree with that, and that's fine. But the point is, they've mastered gamification better than any business on the market at the moment. And then the other side to kind of that retention and building that community around your product is to create exactly that, an engaged community. Platforms like School, even Discord, if you're looking for a free version, Slack is another one, for example. They're fantastic at being able to invite, whether it's consumers, businesses, whatever it might be. Again, depends on B2B or B2C angle. But having a forum where your current customers and people who engage with the business can actively communicate, share ideas, share incentives, and all that kind of stuff is a really positive way to kind of grow the business. And the best way to view this really is if your customers can become your best marketers, then retention takes care of itself. But that doesn't happen without building a community and some kind of incentive around around that business, whether that is bouncing ideas off other people using your application or software or product, or whether it is gamifying it in a similar way to Duolingo. They're probably the most two successful approaches I've seen over the last 5 years or so. And it's hard to see a way in which the market's going to stray away from that because of how well it does. So in summary, gamification, community building, and you won't go too far wrong.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Alec?
Yeah, I mean, if by engagement simply referring to people actually continuing to use the product and continuing to pay to use the product or service, then I obviously work with very small businesses, and I try to keep things as lean as possible. And ultimately, people use a product or will pay for a service if you're solving a problem that they have. And so if the pain of the problem isn't that bad, then why would you pay to have the pain taken away? So I might be misconstruing the question, but I would ultimately ask, why should the customers continue engaging and continue using the product or service, and what problem are you solving for them? And perhaps just ask them that question and find out, and then you'll probably have a better strategy and approach to being able to continue to work with them, continue to keep them on as paying customers, continue to engage with them, because you know what problem it is that they've got that you're solving.
Here, thank you very much, Alec. Last but not least, Gail, please.
Yeah, I really like this question because, excuse me, this is rings a bell, very much can relate to the work that I'm doing at the moment in a renewable energy startup that also has some software that helps people to optimize their energy savings. And the problem with all of this is it's complicated to explain to people, and people are not massively engaged in energy and their energy bills. They're not happy that their energy bills are going up, but the idea of finding ways to optimize that is not a sexy subject for people. So I think the key thing is how can you simplify the messaging around this to make it really easy for them to understand what are these benefits that they're missing out on. And I've seen time and time again how overly complicated we make that messaging. It's got to be super, super simple. Do X, save Y. How can you showcase those benefits as simply as possible? Can you create lots of case studies that show how real life customers of yours have saved money and how it's been as simple as pressing a button to turn on this software? And on the gamification side, I completely agree. So I don't know if you have an app or a website or how people engage with your software, but it would be great if they could see the cost savings, the carbon savings, whatever the key gamification points are, and enable them to see how that is increasing from one day to the next or 1 week to the next, and showcasing those again through all your communication points. So if you're actively communicating, these are our benefits through your socials, through your website, through your app. I assume you've got a database that maybe you email people once a month, something like that. Again, showing people these savings that they're potentially missing out on. Just be really, really consistent and really, really simple in your messaging.
Here, well, that's amazing. Thank you very much to all three of you. I think we've gone through what now, 3-4 questions. It's only 4 minutes to go before we shut shop for the day, so probably no time to take other questions. But what we might want to do is get your parting words, if that's all right. So perhaps if you'd like to go forward first, Gail, and then we could go to Alec, and last but not least, Kieran. What are your parting words? Any words of wisdom you'd like to leave our founders with today?
I'm not sure about wisdom. All I would say is I think you're amazing. I think people who go out and do things, create things from nothing, really should be applauded. So excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. So it is really hard out there. So if you're finding it hard, don't be surprised, because it is really hard out there, but just keep going. You're really amazing.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, and hopefully you can have some water now, Gail, and I appreciate your time and input today. Alec?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you could answer this question, and I bet there's a million different viewpoints. But I would just, to be really simple, I would say just think about your North Star. Like, think about your why. Like, why did you get into this business? Why did you, what did you want to solve? What was the problem that was in the world that you knew you could make a difference with? And just align everything you do around that and getting towards that. And hopefully that should help you to answer any questions that come along if you keep thinking about why you're doing this, and is whatever it is you're doing today taking you towards that goal.
Thank you very much, Alec. Last but not least, Kieran, please.
So probably two main things from me, really. I think the most successful founders in history are absolutely obsessed with the problem they're solving, not necessarily the solution they put in place. So getting into the nitty gritty, really getting into the weeds of your customers' problems, or even problem, if it's one problem, getting to the core of that and understanding why that's the case, puts you on a perfect path of success for your business. And the other thing, and I know Alec alluded to it right at the beginning, and I'll re-emphasize this, is that done is better than perfect. You're never going to get it right the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth time, but the sixth time might be the one that unlocks that, route to 100k or £1 million or wherever it's going to be. So just get out there, do it, and kind of don't look back in that sense, and always be receptive to the feedback you learn along the way.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much to all three of you. I really appreciate your time and wisdom today. Obviously, huge thanks to everyone that tuned in, those of you that did it via the live streams, as well as those of you that actually joined us here interactively on Microsoft Teams. I would strongly advise you, to actually do that next time and join us via the Microsoft Teams calls. By the way, they're audio only, so people like me don't need to spend hours in front of the mirror to do their hair. So they're good for this. It's also flexible and accessible, which means you can join us via any platform or device from anywhere you are, as long as you have internet. Another thing to remind you all is that we have launched, and it's now live, and we're accepting entries for April's Startup of the Month competition, where one of you will get featured in all our events, Q&A events throughout April. And the best way to enter the competition is to go onto our website, StartUp2ScaleUp.club, and click on Startup of the Month. On the other hand, what you can also do is, once you're there, you can RSVP to any of our sessions. We're currently doing 6 of them. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesdays, as you can see today, growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month, legal, and third Friday of the month, finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And as I said, you can RSVP to those via our website. And actually, a good thing to do is, when you go to startup2scaleup.club, to then click on the WhatsApp icon there, so you can join us on WhatsApp and get alerts to future sessions. What else? Yes. As far as my parting words are concerned, just remember, the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime, and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, hopefully see you all tomorrow for Startup Fundraising Q&A. We've got an amazing panel of investors joining us, and that is at 12 o'clock noon time here in the UK. Hopefully we'll see you there. Thank you again, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.